The digital clock above the dispatch floor blinked 2:13 a.m. It blinked once every second, steady and red, as if counting something down instead of forward. Sarah Mitchell noticed it because she always noticed it. Night shift trained your brain to cling to small, predictable things. The clock was one of them. She sat straight in her chair, headset snug against her ears, hands resting near the keyboard without touching it. Dispatchers learned early not to fidget. Panic traveled through the fingers first. The County 911 Communications Center was buried deep inside a concrete building with no windows, no clocks except the one mounted high on the far wall, and no sense of the outside world. Day and night didn't exist here. Only calls did. Rows of cubicles filled the room like an orderly maze. Each workstation glowed softly with multiple monitors, call logs, maps, radio channels, status boards. Gray partitions rose just high enough to block peripheral vision, but low enough that supervisors could see over them. It was never silent. Even on slow nights, there was always sound. The low electrical hum of servers, the faint hiss of radios waiting to speak, the click of keyboards, the muted murmur of voices on headsets. Tonight, though, the sounds blended together in a way that made Sarah uneasy. Not louder, not quieter, just wrong, like breathing that didn't match the chest it came from. Sarah took a sip of coffee and grimaced. It had gone cold an hour ago. She drank it anyway. She had learned long ago that the coffee wasn't there to be enjoyed. It was there to mark time. She glanced at her main screen. No active calls. Quiet nights were supposed to be a gift. She hated them. Busy nights kept your mind occupied. Busy nights didn't leave room for thoughts to wander. Quiet nights made you listen too closely. To the building, to your own breathing, to the faint feeling that something was waiting. She shifted slightly in her chair and adjusted the headset microphone. Across the room, a few other night shift dispatchers sat slouched at their stations. One was scrolling through a phone during downtime. Another leaned back with eyes closed, headset still on, trusting muscle memory to wake him if a call came in. Her supervisor, Mark Ellison, stood near the back, filling out paperwork with one hand while holding a styrofoam cup in the other. He looked tired in the way only people who had worked too many nights looked tired, like sleep was something theoretical. Everything was normal. Sarah tried to believe that. The clock blinked. 2:14 a.m. Her stomach tightened for no reason she could name. She checked her system diagnostics. All green. No glitches, no delayed calls, no network issues. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that the room was holding its breath. Then beep! The sound cut through the room, sharp and sudden. Sarah's console lit up red. Incoming call. Her body reacted before her thoughts caught up. She straightened, hand moving to the mouse automatically. She clicked accept. 911, what's your emergency? Her voice came out calm, level, professional. She had practiced that tone for years. It was the voice people trusted when their world was falling apart. Silence answered her. Not the usual background noise. No TV, no traffic, no crying, no shouting. Just nothing. Sarah waited. Protocol required patience. People froze in emergencies. Sometimes they couldn't speak right away. 5 seconds passed. Then she heard it. Breathing. Slow. Close. Wet. The sound made her skin prickle instantly. It wasn't coming from far away. It sounded like the caller's mouth was right against the phone, each breath pushed deliberately into the microphone. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Hello? She said gently. You've reached 911. I can hear you. Are you in danger? The breathing stopped. For a moment, there was only faint static. Then a voice whispered, barely louder than the hum of the line. He's standing behind me. Sarah's fingers tightened against the desk. Okay, she said, carefully controlling her tone. I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me where you are right now? The caller didn't answer. The breathing returned, faster now. He doesn't want me to, the voice whispered. A chill crept up Sarah's spine. Who is he? She asked. Is someone threatening you? The caller exhaled slowly. He smiles when you ask questions. Sarah's eyes flick to the call trace window. Still searching. No number. No location. No carrier data. That wasn't unusual yet. Some calls took time to log. Listen to me, Sarah said. Help is available, but I need to know where you are. Can you look around and tell me anything you see? The line crackled. I can see the doorway, the caller whispered, and the dark behind it. Sarah swallowed. Is he inside the room with you? She asked. A pause. Yes. Her heart began to pound harder. Are you somewhere safe? She asked. Can you leave the room? The breathing stuttered. No, the caller said. He likes it when I stay still. Sarah felt the hairs on her arms rise. She opened a priority channel silently, ready to alert her supervisor. Stay with me, she said. I'm here with you. The caller laughed softly. A sound with no humor in it. You always say that, they whispered. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? She asked. The breathing slowed. You all sound the same. Her call trace window flickered. For a split second, a location tried to resolve, then vanished. Sarah's pulse spiked. I need you to focus on my voice, she said firmly. Tell me your address. The caller inhaled deeply, then whispered, He doesn't want you to know where I am. Static surged through the line. Sarah flinched as the sound grew louder, harsher. Then quietly the caller said, He's listening to you now. Sarah felt a sudden pressure between her shoulder blades, like someone standing too close behind her. She did not turn around. Help is on the way, she said, even though it wasn't. Just keep talking to me. The caller's voice softened. He sees you, they whispered. The line went dead. No click. No disconnect tone. Just silence. Sarah stared at her screen. The call timer froze at 0:42. She waited. After a few seconds, the system finally dropped the call automatically. Her heart hammered in her chest. She exhaled slowly and began typing her report, fingers slightly unsteady. Caller reported unknown male presence. Whispered speech. Call disconnected before location obtained. Across the room, a radio crackled. Unit 12 responding to a possible disturbance, another dispatcher announced. Caller hung up. Unknown situation. Sarah removed her headset briefly and rubbed her temples. She told herself it was just another frightened caller. She told herself that every night. But as she put the headset back on, she could have sworn she heard breathing that didn't belong to any call. The clock blinked again. 2:15 a.m. And somewhere deep inside the system, a new call began to form. The call log refused to disappear. Sarah Mitchell stared at the frozen entry on her screen longer than she should have. Incoming unknown, duration 0:42, location unavailable. Most calls cleared automatically after documentation. This one didn't. The system behaved as if the call were unfinished, like it was still waiting for something. Sarah tapped a few keys. Nothing changed. System glitch, she muttered under her breath, though the words felt hollow. She glanced around the dispatch floor. No one seemed to have noticed anything unusual. Mark was still at the back, rubbing his eyes and scribbling notes. The other dispatchers were absorbed in their own screens. Sarah hesitated, then raised her hand slightly. Mark, she called quietly. He looked up. Yeah? I just had a strange call, she said, choosing her words carefully. Whispering. No location data. It didn't disconnect cleanly. Mark sighed and walked over, coffee in hand. He leaned against the edge of her cubicle, peering at the screen. Hang up with fear response, he asked. Maybe, Sarah said, but the call timer froze. Mark frowned. That's rare. He reached over and tapped the keyboard, pulling up the back-end call details. For a moment, the screen flickered. Then a string of text appeared that made Sarah's stomach drop. Call origin, unassigned node, Mark straightened. That's not right. What does that mean? Sarah asked. He scratched his jaw. Usually means the call didn't come through a recognized carrier path. Old landline routing sometimes does weird things. But it still came through 911, Sarah said. Yeah, Mark replied slowly, which means it had to originate somewhere. He cleared the log manually. The frozen entry vanished. There, he said. If it happens again, flag it immediately. Sarah nodded, but the unease didn't leave. She put her headset back on. The hum of the room seemed louder now. The clock blinked. 2:19 a.m. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then her radio crackled. Dispatch, Unit 12. Sarah straightened instantly and keyed her mic. Go ahead, Unit 12. We responded to the disturbance address linked to that earlier hang-up, the officer said. There's nothing here. Sarah frowned. Can you confirm the address? Corner of Redwood and Mason, the officer replied. Abandoned residential lot. No structures, no signs of recent activity. Sarah's throat went dry. Copy that, she said. Thank you. She disconnected and stared at her map screen. An abandoned lot. No phone lines. No buildings. Her mind replayed the whisper. He's standing behind me. She shook her head, trying to clear the thought. Fear did strange things to people. Hallucinations. Paranoia. People called from dark places all the time. Closets, basements, broken homes. This was no different. She told herself that. The next call came 15 minutes later. Beep. Sarah accepted it immediately. 911. What's your emergency? A child's voice answered. Hi, the girl said softly. You talked to my mommy. Sarah's blood turned cold. Sweetheart, she said gently. What's your name? There was a pause. Emily, the girl replied. Mommy told me not to tell. Sarah's hand hovered over the keyboard. Emily, where is your mommy right now? She asked. She's being very quiet, the girl said. He told her to. Sarah's heart began to race. Who told her to be quiet? She asked. The girl giggled. The man who smiles. Sarah felt the room tilt slightly. Emily, she said firmly, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Are you alone with your mommy right now? Yes, the girl said. And him. Sarah's call trace window tried to resolve. Nothing. Can you see where you are? Sarah asked. Are you inside a house? No, Emily said. It's not a house anymore. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. What do you mean? She asked. The walls are gone, the girl said casually. But he's still here. Sarah's breathing grew shallow. Emily, are you somewhere safe? She asked. No, the girl said. He doesn't like that word. Static crackled faintly. He says you ask too many questions, Emily continued. He says you should remember. Sarah swallowed hard. Remember what? She asked. The girl lowered her voice to a whisper. That you already heard this call. The monitors flickered. For a brief moment, Sarah saw something appear on her screen. Text that wasn't supposed to be there. Previous call match found. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Emily, she said urgently. How did you call me? I didn't, the girl replied. He did. The breathing returned. Slow, close. Then a new voice joined the line. Adult, male, calm. She wasn't supposed to talk, the man said. Sarah felt her hands go numb. Sir, she said, forcing professionalism into her voice. This line is being recorded. I need you to... You record everything? The man interrupted. That's why I like you. The child whimpered softly. Where are you calling from? Sarah demanded. The man chuckled. From where your signal can still reach, he said. From where you left us. A pressure built behind Sarah's eyes. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. The man exhaled slowly. You will, he whispered. You always do. The line exploded into static. Then silence. The call dropped. Sarah ripped off her headset and stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. Mark looked up sharply. Sarah? That wasn't a prank, she said, her voice shaking. That wasn't normal. Mark moved toward her. What happened? Before she could answer, beep. Every console on the floor lit up red at once. Multiple incoming calls. all marked unknown, all originating from unsigned node, and every one of them was already breathing. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Dispatchers spoke over one another, voices sharp with confusion as their consoles flashed red in unison. Headsets were adjusted, chairs scraped back, supervisors moved quickly between stations. Why are all these calls untraceable? System, confirm carrier integrity. Mark, I've got breathing. Just breathing. Sarah stood frozen for half a second too long. Every light, every screen, every call, unknown, unassigned, breathing. Mark grabbed a handheld radio. All units stand by. Communications, experiencing. The words died in his throat. The radios crackled. Then a voice spoke through every channel at once. Not loud, not distorted. Clear. You're doing very well tonight. The dispatch floor went silent. Sarah's skin prickled as the voice slid through the room, intimate and uninvited. It wasn't coming from her headset alone. It echoed faintly from speakers, radios, and call monitors, layered just enough to make its direction impossible to pinpoint. Mark stared at the nearest console. Who's transmitting? No one answered. The voice continued. You always liked order, it said, even when things were breaking. Sarah's chest tightened. She recognized that tone. Not from tonight, from somewhere deeper. Shut it down, Mark snapped. Kill external input. Technicians rushed toward the server access door, but it wouldn't open. The keypad flashed, access denied. That's not possible, one of them said. We have clearance. The breathing returned, dozens of layers now, overlapping, rising and falling at different rhythms. Sarah slowly lowered herself back into her chair. Her screen changed. No command, no input. Just text appearing, line by line. Call history match found. Her stomach dropped. The system pulled up a call dated 14 years ago. Same unassigned node. Same missing data. Same frozen timer. Sarah's hands trembled. She remembered this. She had tried very hard not to. The voice spoke again, softer now. You were younger then, it said. Your voice shook more. Sarah whispered, no. The memory slammed into her without mercy. She was 17, alone, calling from a place that no longer existed. Her father's old house, condemned, half collapsed, scheduled for demolition after the fire. The night she called 911 because she heard someone breathing behind her. The night no one came. Because the address had already been erased. You stayed on the line, the voice said gently, even when the walls were gone. Mark turned towards Sarah. You know this. She swallowed hard. That call, she said slowly, never ended. The room seemed to lean closer. I was hiding, Sarah continued, voice barely steady. The house had burned weeks earlier, but I could still hear him, breathing, smiling. Her screen flickered again. Audio playback began automatically. Her own younger voice filled the headset. Please, I don't know where I am anymore. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut. The voice on the recording whispered back. I'm right here. Mark stared at her in disbelief. That's me, Sarah finished. I hung up, or I thought I did. The breathing on the floor slowed. Unified now. Satisfied. You learned to listen, the voice said. That's why you belong here. Sarah stood again, heart pounding. You're not real, she said aloud. You're just an echo. A chuckle rippled through the speakers. Echoes don't answer back. The lights dimmed. Every screen displayed the same message. Call transferred. Sarah's headset grew warm against her ear. The voice spoke only to her now. You've been answering us for years, it whispered. But tonight you finally stayed. Her mouth went dry. What do you want? She asked. To finish the call, the voice replied. The floor monitors shifted. A map appeared. Redwood and Mason. The abandoned lot. But now a structure flickered into view. A burned house, half standing. Waiting. The clock blinked. 2:22 a.m. And somewhere beneath the dispatch floor, a phone began to ring. The ringing didn't come from any speaker. It came from below. Everyone on the dispatch floor felt it, more than heard it. A dull vibration rising through the concrete, like a pulse buried inside the building itself. Mark backed away from the server door. "That's not possible," he said again, but his voice lacked conviction. The ringing stopped. Every screen went dark. Then one console came back online. Sarah's. Her name appeared at the top. Mitchell, Sarah, active call. Her headset tightened slightly, as if pulled by unseen hands. The voice returned, quieter now. "This is where you always stop listening," it said. "But the call doesn't stop." Sarah took a slow breath. "You said you wanted to finish the call." "Yes," the voice replied. "You're very good at remembering." The map reappeared. Redwood and Mason. Only now the structure was solid. Walls intact, windows dark, roof sagging but present. The burned house looked whole, as if time itself had been persuaded to step backward. Mark stepped closer. "Sarah, step away from the console." She didn't. "What happens if I don't?" she asked. The voice paused. "Then we keep calling," it said, "and someone else will answer." Sarah's jaw tightened. "How many?" she asked. "How many what? How many people answered after me?" The breathing returned. "Enough," the voice said. Sarah closed her eyes. She saw flashes. Dispatchers slumped over consoles, phones ringing in empty rooms. Voices whispering into headsets long after their owners had stopped breathing. "You're not helping them," she said. "You're feeding on them." A soft laugh. "We are remembered by them," the voice corrected. "We exist because you listen." The building shuddered slightly. Mark grabbed Sarah's arm. "We're evacuating, now!" The lights flickered. Emergency exit signs dimmed. The voice whispered into Sarah's ear. "If you leave, they stay." Her pulse roared in her head. "Who are they?" she demanded. The screen shifted again. Call logs scrolled past at impossible speed. Hundreds, thousands, all untraceable, all unanswered. The voice spoke with reverence. Calls made from places that no longer exist. Homes erased, addresses forgotten. People who dialed for help after the world moved on without them. Sarah's throat burned. "They were still alive," she whispered. "They still are," the voice said. "As long as someone answers." Mark's grip tightened. "Sarah, it's lying." She pulled her arm free. "If I go there," she said slowly, "will it stop?" The breathing paused. "For you?" the voice asked. "Yes." "And the others?" "They will rest," the voice replied. Silence stretched. The clock blinked. 2:23 a.m. Sarah stood up, removed her headset, and placed it carefully on the desk. "I'll finish the call," she said. Mark shook his head. "You don't know what you're walking into." "I do," she replied softly. "I've been there before." The front doors unlocked with a heavy mechanical click. Outside, rain had begun to fall, thin, steady, soaking the streets in reflections. Sarah grabbed her jacket and walked out. The map on her phone lit up on its own. Redwood and Mason. The drive felt wrong. Streets looped when they shouldn't have. Traffic lights changed too slowly. Radio stations faded into static whenever she tried to distract herself. When she reached the intersection, there was no abandoned lot. There was a house. The burned house. Whole. Waiting. Sarah parked and stepped out into the rain. The air smelled like wet ash. The front door stood open. From inside, a phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Sarah crossed the threshold. The door closed behind her. And somewhere far away, on the dispatch floor, a single console lit up red. The house was warm. That was the first thing Sarah noticed. Not the comforting warmth of a lived-in home, but the trapped heat of something sealed shut for too long. The air smelled faintly of smoke and dust, like a memory that refused to fade. The phone rang again. It sat on a small table in the center of the living room. An old landline phone, cream-colored, its cord coiled neatly, as if someone had taken care to arrange it. Ring. Sarah's footsteps echoed as she moved closer. The floorboards did not creak. The house felt expectant, listening. She picked up the receiver. 911, she said automatically. The house exhaled. Walls shimmered, just slightly, like heat rising from asphalt. The living room stretched outward, becoming larger than it should have been. Hallways branched where none had existed a moment before. The voice answered her, not through the phone, but from everywhere. You came back. I stayed on the line, Sarah replied. A figure emerged slowly from the darkness near the hallway. The smiling man. He looked ordinary at first glance. Middle-aged, clean-cut, dressed in clothes that belonged to no specific time. But his smile was wrong. Too patient, too practiced. Like it had been worn for centuries. You always do, he said. Sarah tightened her grip on the receiver. You're not a man. No, he agreed. I'm what remains. The walls shifted again. Sarah saw them, then. People. They stood in doorways, sat on floors, leaned against walls that flickered between burned and intact. Men, women, children. Some crying softly, some staring blankly. All holding phones that were no longer connected to anything real. They called for help, Sarah said. They called to be heard, the smiling man corrected. Addresses disappear, buildings fall, records are erased, but voices linger. Sarah felt tears sting her eyes. So you keep them here. I keep them answered, he said gently. Silence is worse. The phone in her hand buzzed faintly, alive. And you? She asked. What are you? The man's smile softened. I am the space between the ring and the answer. The truth settled into her bones. 911 wasn't just an emergency number. It was a doorway. A promise that someone would listen. And promises, once made, demanded to be kept. You need dispatchers, Sarah said. People who won't hang up. Yes, the man replied. People who stay. The house trembled. You took them, she said, one by one. They chose, he said. As you did. Sarah closed her eyes. She remembered her younger self, hiding, whispering into a phone while the world pretended she was already gone. No one should be forgotten like that, she whispered. The smiling man nodded. Then take your place. The phone rang again, louder this time. Sarah raised the receiver to her ear. 911. What's your emergency? Voices answered her. Not screaming. Relieved. One by one, the figures around her began to fade, not vanishing but softening, as if finally allowed to rest. The house began to collapse inward, not violently but gently, like a story closing its final page. The smiling man stepped back into the darkness. You'll do very well, he said. The light dimmed. Back at the dispatch center, the power surged back to life. Screens rebooted. Calls resumed. Mark stared at Sarah's empty station. Her console showed one final entry. Call status, active. Dispatcher, Mitchell, Sarah. The clock blinked. 2:24 a.m. A new call came in. The dispatcher assigned to it hesitated for just a moment before answering. 911. What's your emergency? On the line, a calm, familiar voice replied, Please stay on the line.